one is there. Don't worry. So, okay, I'm gonna do the introduction then. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to this spring 2021. I'm glad to have all of those who are here on time. We may expect others that are gonna come not on time, but it's because we recently changed our meeting times. I said times too many times. So yes, I'm here representing our beloved philosopher theme alongside Yusha and Orlando, and we're gonna kick off this reality theme for the month, where we're gonna be talking about reality understood through the lens of religion. We do have a couple of announcements. I don't know if Nancy wants to take care of the announcement. Usually he does them. Otherwise, I can just do it myself.
Well, yeah, I'll make just a couple of quick announcements, and if I'm forgetting anything, feel free to add in. Yeah, again, as Fernando just stated, we're going to be meeting at 3 o'clock this semester rather than 3:30. So 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock will be the meeting times every Tuesday. Always on this particular spot here, the Teams page. If you go to the files in our Teams page, you can see the entire schedule. So every topic, every week, all broken down. Perhaps your professors posted it in your eCampus pages or whatever the case may be, but you always have access to it. You can see what's coming up next week, the week after that, etc. And if you do look, you'll notice, as again, Fernando was saying, we have monthly themes this semester. So the theme for this first month, basically from now until halfway through February, is reality. So each week we're going to look at or consider, reality. What is it? How can we understand it from various perspectives, from different vantage points? Today's vantage point is going to be theological. Again, so the topic being divine metaphysics. We'll get all into it, but yeah, the focus is going to be on, according to certain theological approaches, what is real and what is not real. And then next week we'll be looking at science, etc., etc. So, having said all that, again, this is a very, for those of you who are new, very friendly club. We have these conversations, but everybody here is, we're all pals, and so we're exploring this stuff together. Nobody's necessarily right or wrong per se, but we help work through ideas. It's a lot of fun, good conversation. We make a lot of jokes. So yeah, feel free to enjoy yourself. You're under no pressure to speak if you don't want to. You're free to use the chat if you'd rather text your responses. And speaking of which, in order to get a queue going for the order of who gets to talk first, second, third, etc., please put an exclamation mark in the chat. So when we see your name, the exclamation mark, that's the cue, and then we'll kind of go down the line from there. Yeah, I guess that's all I got for the time being.
All right, thank you so much. All right, so yes, feel free. Like the participation will be like a night. Always, I don't know why, way too much time. So there you go. It will look like that. So first of all, I would like to check if those who are participating here, which I think most of you except for Rudy, may be aware of this. Can you, Rudy, confirm, please, if you're able to see the chat, or if you are able to write in the chat? Because sometimes some students do not have access to it.
Yes.
Okay, so if you saw the exclamation mark, if you want to participate, that is exactly just what you need to do, so we can follow the order. That's pretty much it. It's very simple. All right. Okay, so let's go with it. So reality understood through the lenses of religion. Well, for those who read the email, like I believe that part of what we should tackle today is to define what reality truly is, because we cannot even start having a conversation if we diverse on what reality is. Um, I guess in this area, I'm a little bit in the side of like even myself sometimes doubt what truly reality is, because like sometimes I feel like we may, like, depending on the day, the same object we may perceive it differently. So I'm not completely sure if I can have some guidance, maybe, since I don't know anything, or what you may believe could be reality. Is it just something that is tangible? Or sometimes even the more ethereal matters could be also understood as reality, because sometimes there's something, and some people may argue that there is some energy that they can feel, and that helps them make decisions based on something that they cannot even touch. So what are your thoughts on it?
I guess I can start us
Nice.
off. I don't know if you guys can hear me. Oh, or someone already put something?
Mansi,
No,
Nancy, you can go
that was
first.
me.
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, fair enough. The yeah. So just getting kind of back to um, the topic in general. It's uh it's interesting that throughout all recorded human history, especially early on, there have been different religious uh, stories. We could just say narratives, mythologies, whatever the case may be, that attempt to understand the real reality. Uh, Oftentimes, again, you could pick any religion, current or previous. There's always an attempt to try to get at sort of like the absolute core of what is real, and oftentimes, what you find is that realness is not necessarily linked to what is tangible, as you were saying, Fernando. It's not necessarily linked to what is sort of here and now. It's more linked to things that are intangible, ethereal. So again, things like the soul, um, perhaps things like God, or whatever the deity happens to be. Um, Again, this is kind of setting the tone for the next few meetings, where we're going to look at it, from different sides. But I think it was appropriate to start with this one because theological or religious creation stories of sorts, they kind of came first. They themselves set the precedent. Um, so yeah, it's this idea of, well, if we have something like an infinite God, if we want to look at something, like, I'll just pick a religion for example, say Christianity. Um, if you have this notion of a God that is again uh, not limited by material, not so much dependent on one's environment, but in fact is the source of all environments, is the source of everything. And that God himself is not necessarily of a piece with what he creates. And again, just using one religion as an example, you can pick any religion, and that's kind of what we're getting at, is that sometimes we have this notion of a divinity that is not necessarily physical. And then that gives rise to notions of reality that suggest that the physical reality is kind of, I guess, a manifestation of something that's pre-physical, something that's pre-bodily.
Yeah, I kind of want to build on what you're saying there. I mean, just to kind of take a step back here, I think just a very simple way to look at reality is just, I mean, obviously it's different for different people. I think the concept here is like what we believe to be true of our environment. Whether we believe that the physical environment is all that's true, or that there's this sort of metaphysical environment that exists beyond us, whether it's the afterlife, whether it's the soul, it's the mind, things that we don't understand, that we don't see. I think that's the concept of reality that we're kind of touching bases on. And when you're talking about reality, I mean, there's two schools of thoughts. There's kind of this idea of naturalistic reality, or this metaphysical sense. And I think when it comes to religion, you're already accepting this metaphysical, where it's like the world around me only kind of works to shape who I'm going to be in the afterlife, or works to shape in the next life. And that's kind of the concept of what religion is kind of getting at. But if we kind of take it even further, go even a step backwards, I mean, how religion is shaped, it's also shaped by the natural world. Like different cultures and different places have different religions based off the different circumstances, environments that they're faced by. I mean, if you take something like Christianity and like Hinduism, they're very similar in a sense that they accept this metaphysical idea, but at the same time, Christianity only believes in one God, Hinduism believes in many gods. And you can even, I read this book, it's called about, I forgot what it's called, but basically it was comparing the different religions. And it was saying that, well, Christianity, originally they believed that the earth was the center of the universe. And that kind of shaped their idea of one God. And around like Hinduism and a lot of the Chinese literature as well, is that they believed that the celestial body was infinite, and so therefore they kind of believed in many gods. So what you're kind of seeing is that these different religions are built off like this different understanding of the physical world and physical nature. But I mean, yeah, let me stop there because I can go on all day.
it's fine. You can hold your thoughts there. But you bring very good points, and I'm pretty sure that Yusha, now that is the next, will complement that very swiftly. So go ahead, Yusha.
Thanks, guys. I really like the discussion that's going on here because uh, me, I come from Islam. I come from Middle East, and all that being said, it's not all that different that different religions believe um, to agree with what reality may or may not be, because in Islam, and I believe in major part of Christianity, it is said that uh, in order for the religion to be complete, for the person to fully believe, they must believe in the religious book. They must believe in God and angels, and of course the day of resurrection, the day and heaven and hell. So with that being said, out of all these, the only thing that is actually concrete is the book itself, and historically speaking, how and where those books came into existence and what they relate to as reality is very controversial, because I tried to get in conversation with some people about this, that hey, do you think that this might be flawed, or this could be other way, and blah blah blah, but they just take offense to it instead of having a discussion about it. So this would be a better platform for me to bring up these points, that in religion, reality is portrayed like a test or a temporary place, yet we are tested on the day of judgment for this temporary place and not the place that is quote unquote forever. So
I mean, but that would be in some religions, because some others don't even consider that.
I mean, see,
I
And
think he's
Hinduism.
comparing Islam and Christianity in this instance, I
oh,
think.
okay.
Yeah, even in Hinduism, they say that they have 7 opportunities to fix their lives. By that, I mean they are reincarnated or reborn in different forms of life 7 times all in all. And after they die the seventh time, then and there is the judgment for Hindus. That is a portion of they believe of what they believe in. So it is pretty straightforward that most, if not all, religions believe in the life after. And if that is real or not, we don't know, because it never happened, and of course dead people don't talk, so we don't know what's to come, and it all just might be an a big illusion.
I kind of want to go off of that too. I kind of want to take a step back from this like idea of afterlife, because I think that's something like that's going to be great to touch on too later on. But I mean, if we're talking about what these religions and what their aim is, I feel like, when we go back and we understand the foundation here, I think ultimately, like philosophy, they're just trying to figure out what's the best way to live my life. What is the best way that I'm going to go about in this temporary moment for some religions, that I essentially will come out and I'll go to heaven, that I will come out of karma and I'll reincarnate into a better life, so on and so forth. It's seeking to do all of these things. And the way I've kind of looked at religion from my own personal perspective is like they're all kind of sciences for a morality. Is that they're looking at all the different moral functions of the world, and they're saying, okay, well, what is the best way that I can treat others, that I can essentially feel good about my works, that I can make sure that there's peace around the world. And it seems like they pursue that in very many different ways, because when you look at Christianity, the central idea for Christianity is to worship, is believing in, at least from Protestant Christianity, from what I know, is that you're supposed to believe that essentially that Jesus Christ was sacrificed on the cross for you, and that as long as you believe that you will find a place in heaven. And you compare that to something like Hinduism or Buddhism, where it's not really much about the worship, it's more over about the actual works themselves, the actual acts themselves. The priority is that you need to act in accordance to these sort of teachings versus completely just worship. I mean, that's not to kind of say anything bad about Christianity, because the central idea of Christianity is you're supposed to be humbled at the concept that there is a God, and understand that you should still follow the teachings regardless of that. And so with these concepts, I mean, I kind of want to kind of compare how they affect a person, an individual, because if you look at how Christians tend to aim politically, they tend to be more conservative. They tend to be kind of more following an authority figure, because it comes to this idea of I'm following a God. So it's like it's very central and focused on this idea of like conservatism, of sticking by these bylaws. I have to be this way, very, very, sort of stagnant in that sense, versus sort of like how Buddhism is, where it's you're not accepting that there is a God, rather you're kind of choosing to live a certain lifestyle. And so you see Buddhism kind of tends to fall something like more along the existentialist kind of perspective and philosophy, which I thought was interesting. But
Yeah, and that you're mentioning is actually playing a very good with the topic today because, as you mentioned, it like your religion does play a huge role of how you interact with your environment. As you're mentioning, like for example, your idea of what the I guess since you mentioned politics, like how politics should look like, is based also partly on what your religion taught you from when you were a kid because then you will have this idea that, well, if I'm Christian and I was like in a strict environment, then I will value a leader who is like very strict and also like shows like power and like always knowing exactly what to do. Well, like that might be something different from other people with different religions. Um, something that I was also thinking when Yusha was talking is like, um, there are some individuals who have the same religion and have different perspective of the same item that they're observing, like analyzing. So what exactly, how does that change? Because if they're all basing their opinions based on the same, in this case, book, like one could assume that the content should be like clear enough for them to kind of like analyze it um, similarly, but that's not the case. I mean, to the point that we even have different branches of the same religion, all kind of like not according to what really happened in the book that they're all reading. Um, so yeah, for me that's always very interesting to see that we all like yes, religion shaped your world, but there is other components that affect on how you're perceiving the environment, and it seems to be more individualistic too. Uh,
makes sense. Did you want to respond, Yusha? Or
Yeah, I mean, see the discussion itself about reality is we don't even know if we ourselves are real, because if you go online and find any conspiracy theory page, people often talk about that we live in a matrix, and because of that we experience things like dreaming, deja vu, that gut feeling, whatever you want to call it. But there are instances that we question reality, and it's not only those instances that take place, it's also events that follow much after. There's a psychological phenomenon where we assume that something is one way, but in reality it's another. It's called the Mandela effect, if I'm not mistaken, where you can swear on your life that, for example, Fruit of the Loom, right? They make men's undergarments. I could swear on my life that forever, since the company was founded, they had a basket behind the fruit. But if you go look up the logo, there's no basket behind the fruit. It was just my figment of imagination. Or that is the moment I was questioning reality.
okay. Yeah, well, it's good for me to know that the Mandela effect is also being applied for like those type of topics. Since for me, it was mostly like if someone was saying someone died, but he wasn't dead or something like that. But I understand the general message that you're sending, and I see the Nancy's now in the loop. So there, go ahead, Nancy.
Yeah, I'm loving the discussion so far. Really excellent points, all very thought provoking. I will say this, tying it back to a point Orlando was making earlier. Again, the sort of the philosophical dimension of religion, or specifically, we could just say sort of religious accounts of what's real and our origin. It does go back to this idea of looking around you and asking yourself, well, where did all of this come from? Why is all of this here? And I think you can make the case that there's the wide variety of religions that have manifested over the course of recorded human history are all rather sophisticated attempts to try to grasp the cohesiveness of our existence. So if the world works a certain way, and I mean that like environmentally speaking, like in terms of math and even the laws of physics, whatever the case may be, there has to be a reason why it's like that. And the idea then becomes, well, who decided that, basically? And again, this is where we get the jumping off point of sort of metaphysics as sort of first reality, as the truest reality, as that which engenders the physical world. We start with the physical, and we try to work our way back to things that are less tangible, but arguably more impactful, more influential, more formative of ourselves and the world around us. So I wanted to say I appreciate that connection with the philosophy and the religion. I think what we're all kind of saying here is that, yeah, these theological, call them what you will, origin stories, creation stories, whatever the case may be, they're very philosophical. They're incredibly philosophical articulations of again the human being who is self-aware, attempting to get a better understanding of oneself as sort of part of a greater whole, part of a deeper context. And if we begin to see, well, okay, this is how the world seems to be operating according to our observations or calculations, then you can begin to develop notions of certain kinds of deities, and not just what their nature is, but how you're supposed to what you're supposed to do with that, I guess we could say. Again, I think of something like, gosh, I don't know. If the world is this particular way and we can prove it, then it has to be this way for a reason. And then, or if I can attempt to try to suss out what the rationale might be for the world being the way it is, I can begin to understand, and this is finally taking us back to Orlando's point, I can begin to understand how I'm supposed to behave in it. I can begin to understand the way that I ought to be living, given the state of affairs, given where we come from.
Also, Manzi, I think what's interesting is that it's much like philosophy. It's sort of this compilation of humanity. I feel like as individuals, we often question authority and look at something and we say, well, why does that have the right to do that? And I feel like people often will look at religion and say, like, well, why is religion right? Why should I follow it? And that's a very central question for people. But I think they are belittling what it is. I'm not necessarily religious, but I'll say this. I think they're belittling what is the foundation of these religions, that this is not just something that was built upon one day. This is something that was on an evolution of humanity as a part of a development as a humanity as a whole, not just one mind working to essentially achieve or understand reality, but rather the compilation of humanity as a whole. So when you're questioning religion, you're not just questioning this, you're questioning all of humanity. Like, well, why do all these humans think they're right? Why do you think you're right? That's my question to people who are skeptical of religions like that. But I mean, in terms of that, when you really think about what religion can provide for people, it kind of provides this cohesiveness. Looking back into like Roman times, there's sort of this, I guess, conspiracy or this belief in historical ideology that when Christianity was getting popular, it was actually starting to become a state religion through the Roman Empire, because they wanted to essentially have a cohesive community. They wanted to have people who were more willing to subject to authority. Not to say that that's true or not, but I mean, you can kind of see the argument there, because when you have all these people essentially believing, okay, well, this is what's right and this is what's wrong, there's no room for this rebellious individual nature. But I think what's good about religion is that it kind of, most religions, good religions, I would say, because there's so many religions, they give you this strict bylaws, but then they also give you this room for individualism. So it's like you're sort of seeing the room for both, and that's why possibly these 6 religions are sort of the most popular or the most successful, because they have that. They have that individualistic nature, but then they still have the strict bylaws, essentially, where you can have sort of this commonality within all individuals. And so when you're really looking at that and you really ask yourself, well, okay, well, what are the glasses of my reality and how am I looking at the world? As a person, let's just make a random situation here. Okay, I'm an existentialist. Let's say I'm just looking at the world and I believe nothing means anything. by that just sort of very foundational idea, I'm saying, oh, I can go and kill someone. I can go do something. I don't care. I don't believe anything means anything. This is the most extreme. I'm not saying this is the case. But now you take religion,
I will
someone who
know
goes
it's
into
clipped.
someone who goes into religion, they're kind of forced to not forced, but they are essentially accepting that there is right and wrong. So it kind of provides you with this foundational and this real belief of morality that you kind of had to abide by. Otherwise, you're understanding that you're a bad person. So that's something that I think is admirable about religion for sure.
It is truly admirable, yes. However, some of the things that even though you were mentioning it as some sort of like a just example, it does also raise concerns because then it could also be used as a tool to like adjust the reality just as some people may wanted it to be. Because as I mean, as you are mentioning, some of the individuals who I guess are in the position of kind of like adjusting the views of religion may choose to do some specific things in terms of like a connecting better with the public. And we see like even recently, like like, I always get them confused, like the church, like the Pope. Um, he just recently like is admitting like maybe like some type of marriages, some others not. Like it keeps like improving based on what they believe could help them have some sort of authority with them and what they believe should be the way for us to understand whatever it is that is happening, like how we should react towards a specific event. Um, it's just a concern. So it does also raise opportunity for us to like adjust reality as we see it. And I said you is next. Um,
Isn't Professor Manzi before me?
I think he already spoke.
Yeah,
That
he's
was
been
way before. That was way before. Yeah.
Okay. Uh, well, for starters, I'll begin with saying that if we look at the Norse mythology and their version of quote unquote religion and reality is that one of the giants, one of the titans, is actually holding the planet or the universe up on his
Mhm.
back as a punishment for eating his children. And that's where you see a lot
Well,
of the stories.
I think you're mixing them. The one who
That's
eat the
Greek.
children
I'm
was in
sorry.
the
I always
Kronos.
mix them. The one I'm talking
Ah,
about is Greek, not Norse.
there.
Uh,
okay.
Zeus, Athena, Hades, and all those. I'm
I
sorry,
was
guys.
like, like what is
Thanks for
happening?
correcting me. But yeah, according to them, there's only three key gods, and all others are just kind of exceptions on the side, if you wanna say that, because the most you hear about is Zeus, Hades, and Poseidon, the god of water and all the creatures in it. But their reality was, in fact, that the earth began in a very crude manner and it all just started existing. No one had a hand in actually creating it. But if you look at through science, science assumes and it hypothesizes that it was the Big Bang because, of course, we don't have any concrete evidence to show how the earth was created. But again, if you come back to these modern religions, they say that God created them. And how can we relate that to what's real or not? If if one thing is concrete and it appeals to the five senses, the human mind automatically assumes that it's real. For example, ghosts, right? There's there's endless stories of possession, spirits, ghosts, and whatnot, but you cannot actually see, touch, smell, taste, or hear a ghost or a spirit. Yet we just assume them to be true and not just figments of our imagination or hallucinations at that. Our mind is really susceptible to actually finding out what's real or not.
I think yeah, that's true. Oh wait, Manzi's next. Let me not interrupt.
No, please interrupt him. Be my guest. But I
Yeah,
do want to
I
say something very quick. Very, very quick. Well, first, I do think like the Greek mythology actually adjusts how the world was created, because before the gods there were the Titans, and the Titans they have like a specific like also task. Like Kronos was the time. There was a Gaia, I think, was the other one who was like nature and things like that. Not important, but I do believe that they intended to create how the universe started even before the gods. Um, but you do bring some interesting points. It is like we are susceptible to how we perceive reality, and that's why we also recur to religion to try to understand it, because otherwise, like we will be like everywhere. So yes, go ahead, Nancy.
yeah. Let me kind of respond to that quickly. Well, first of all, shout out to those who kind of came in a little bit later. We have a few more people in here. Special shout out to Professor Howard, who teaches world religions. Very cool to have him here for this conversation.
Hey,
Hey,
maybe we should
I am.
remind everyone of the time change while we're here.
Yeah,
Yes,
we are starting at 3:30.
Let me just say real quick. Hey, this is Dr. Howard. I am really glad to be here. I apologize for being late. Professor Manzi, when I saw your announcement, I think you sent it out this morning, I believe, or maybe yesterday. I was
yeah,
excited. Oh man, they talking about religion and metaphysics. I said, I got to see in on this one, you know. So I just got out of a meeting. That's why I was late. And I said, oh man, it's 3:15, man. And so I got in and I'm hearing some great things. And I tell you, it's I'm chomping at the bit because I want to jump in and add just a little something. But I said, no, I'm gonna let them have it. But
Well,
keep
feel
up the
free
great
to
work,
join
man.
in.
Y'all are really doing excellent work, and your thought processes are really clear, really fresh. I'll just add just a real little small tidbit, but just listening to you over the past 15 minutes, it caused me to think about Descartes, and particularly Descartes' his discourse first, in which, that cogito ergo sum, and I think, therefore I am. And so, he begins that whole process there, regarding reality and existence. But something that I've had the pleasure of just immersing myself into and laying into is Descartes' Meditations. And if you've not had the opportunity to read Descartes' Meditations, I mean, it just reads like some of the Psalms that we find in the Old Testament scriptures, or maybe the Proverbs of Solomon, And so one of the things I appreciate about Descartes in particular on this subject was just his meditate. Well, of course, first his discourse, but then also his meditations, dealing with the existence of God, and just how he took his time and implemented the maxims that he had developed and highlighted in his discourse, and then applied them to his meditations, And so just listening to you, to all of you, just wax eloquent, as we say, on not only philosophical, but also on theological matters. See, I'm a theologian first and foremost, and then I'm a philosopher. And so I really appreciate your insights, and y'all are doing a phenomenal job. The Philosophy Club of Dallas College is just something that I continue to brag about every opportunity that I get. Okay, so hats off to you. Hats off to you also, Professor Manzi. Keep up the excellent work. Okay.
yeah. Thank you very much. Very
Y'all
kind words.
have a great spring semester. Okay.
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
too.
All right.
Thank you so
Okay.
Yeah, geez. Such kind words. Now I'm going to follow up with something that's very inarticulate. but um, but yeah, and I agree with everything that Professor Howard said. That especially when it comes to sort of again, wrapping one's head around. Oh, that's funny, John. Go ahead. Wrapping one's head around this stuff. Day one of the semester. I mean, this is a dense topic, and y'all are doing an excellent job. To jump back into the conversation, though, yeah. Well, first of all, I guess getting back to something you just said, if you want to check out the sort of the ancient sort of origin story, ancient Greek rather, I would recommend Hesiod, a work called Theogony. So again, Hesiod was an ancient Greek poet, and that's where it's kind of like the very first written accounts, at least in the West, of sort of the formation of the world and the role that the gods played in it. That's where you read about the Titans and all that good stuff. But a while back, Orlando, you used the phrase the good religions, and I think I know what you're getting at. No, I have no problem with the phrase, but I kind of want to flesh out more so like what that might mean. And I think we're all kind of dancing around it. The religions that seem to endure over long periods of time, why do they endure when other religions die out? Now, you raised some excellent points about the politics behind religion, especially at certain points in history. But again, I want to harp upon the philosophical dimension. The religions that are rational, it seems to me, the religions that provide this sense of cohesiveness in a way that is, relatively clearly articulated, but to the point where everything hangs together. There doesn't seem to be any robust inconsistencies. It makes it believable, and especially if it appeals to your sense of rationality, which is our inherent nature. So I kind of want to bring it back to this idea of, well, metaphysics, divine metaphysics. What does that really amount to? It seems to again imply that there is a sort of divinity that is operational, or divinities that are operational in the background. But or maybe not even just the background. When I say background, I mean they're not, again, empirically observable necessarily. That itself, I think, is a point worth considering, because the most rational aspects of our reality aren't necessarily visible. They aren't necessarily, again, anything you can sense. It's just you grasp it with your mind, your intellect, your soul, whatever the case may be, or however you want to put it. I think it's interesting that the religions that appeal more to our philosophical senses seem to be the ones that endure over a longer period of time.
Yeah, also to kind of add on to that, I think to some sense they appeal to sort of these aspects of life that we seem to be to perceive as true, yet like how you said, they're not really tangible, such as our emotions. I think in this concept of, a concept like love, like faith, like, things that are noble, things like that, we can't touch that, but those are concepts that we feel are truth and that we feel are worthy of certain things like affection. And so with that being the case, you kind of question, well, when you're kind of thrust into this world, you sort of feel this not alienation, but I kind of feel like you kind of question the reality. You question, well, what is this all there is? But then when you're put into that and you feel emotionally, you feel things like maybe love, feels like happiness, joy, these certain things, you cherish them in a different way. And when you can align that with a certain religion that not only helps you feel that way, but emphasizes that, with concepts of, okay, I love God, God loves me, so on and so forth, that's something that can be stuck to you in a way that nothing else is. And I think with religion, and when we're talking about the succession of them, I think a religion for people is something that they should truly believe in, not something that they are forced to believe in. Because I believe whenever it's something that they truly believe in, it's something that they are more worthy to abide by, rather than just be forced to abide by. And I think that's just true about anything. Any real moral principle is that you really believe it for the sake of believing, rather than you just, I need to because otherwise I'm going to suffer. But I mean, I don't know, that kind of opens up a whole gate, but I'll stop there.
It is okay to open gates. But it's okay. You said, I see that you are next, so just gonna let you. I do have something to say, but you put that first, so go ahead.
I like your point about the current society being based on some form of religion, because no matter where you go, the current society and the norms, quote unquote, they can always fall back onto what different people consider as their religion, because most of the world where Christianity is dominant, their laws, rules, and regulations are derived from the Bible. Same thing for Judaism and same thing for Islam. If you go towards Middle Eastern countries, their state laws and governance laws are more derived from the Quran and its teachings. So is it that we created religion to blame something? For example, um, intersex marriages, for example. These big religions, not that I have anything against or for it, just for the sake of the conversation, most religions forbid it to a certain degree. And same goes for the state laws for the longest amount of time. In only recent years that the world is acknowledging the fact that they are human beings too, they should have rights too, so on and so forth. But that's a different topic all in itself. And my point being that when it was before these religions, when people were more inclined towards the Nordic teachings, to them it was fair to kill a person who did you wrong. There was no repercussions for it. It was it was fair to loot and pillage other people's villages. It was fair to have an open fight. It was so basically the things that we say a big no to in this current society, it was okay back then. Like um to kind of enunciate on it. It was okay in that society. Like
But
it was.
is that necessarily true, Yusha? Because you also see countries where they would do things in the name of God, where they would actually go
Yeah.
out and say, "Well, I need to represent my God and make sure that my God is dominant." So I don't
Yeah,
know if that's
that's
necessarily the case though, because we
that
still see the
that's
same
that's
things
exactly
within
my
the
point.
religion.
Because in this sense, what is the reality? The person who is expressing their love of God and forcing it on others, you have what, three or four big contributors to this. Of course, the biggest one is the ISIS. The second biggest one is the KKK. The third largest one is the Crusaders, and the fourth largest ones are the Romans, who had invaded Turkey and all its lands. So, with that on one hand, and the current society, the modern okayness of whatever we do right now is okay, because see, in the Bible it says you have to be a good person. What is the definition of a good person? Person who helps, blah blah blah, gives to the needy, doesn't curse, doesn't drink, and there's so many definitions for it. But for a person who is not of this religion, does it necessarily apply to them too? Is it their reality as well?
But I think
Uh,
Yusha, sorry, I'm sorry, I'm kind of hogging it, but I think because religion, this is the nice thing about religion, is that they have specific strict moral laws. And I think when you see that, you can kind of in when it comes to morality in just a vague sense, it's like, oh, well, what's a good person? But I think good person is defined in these religions. And so when you say that, well, is it okay for me if I was a Christian to go and kill someone? No, because it's literally specifically says thou shalt not kill. And that's the same for all the religions that have specific moral bylaws. So, in my own opinion, I think it's fair to say that people that essentially do the opposite of what the religion is saying in the name of their religion don't really believe in it and aren't really
See,
acting in accordance to it.
that's exactly my point. You put it in a better way than I could. It's, did we create religions to impose our definition of a good person on others, or do we truly follow it?
There you go.
okay. All right. I mean, I do want to say something that is related to what both of you are mentioning. Because there is also this thing, like, and I guess it's kind of like connecting it back to the subject that is like trying to understand reality. So yes, we have the. I'm losing my train of thoughts. can we say really that we use religion to like that we can use religion to define what reality truly is? Like, can we assess like that something is actually real just because the religion says it is? So like because I'm trying to see like the role that religion goes in this case, so we can define what reality is. Because as we mentioned at the beginning, in order for us to assess like uh, this topic, we need to define what reality is. And yes, I do believe that religion does approach trying to define it, but can we say that to some extent it really helps us like understand what is truly real? And if so, why do we have so many branches or so many like people who are against religion trying to say like, you know what, religion doesn't help, maybe look at science? So, what exactly is it that religion is having in these things, in trying to understand reality? That some people, for example, could say that no, this is not helping me because it is not actually assessing reality as I believe it should be. Like, what exactly happened in that case? That is something that I'm looking
I think it
forward to
really,
see.
I think it really
Mhm.
depends on your outlook on religion. Because for my own opinion, if I want to say I'm looking at it objectively, I think science and religion serve completely different purposes. Where in some instances they can kind of collide, but what I'm saying by that is with with religion I'm seeking my moral truth of why am I here. With in science I'm seeking how am I here in the physical realm. And so with that being the case, I'm kind of looking at it as I don't think that they have to clash. I think that if you believe in a certain religion, you're just seeking to live a fruitful life while you can still understand and explore science. So I don't think necessarily they have to collide. I think they can collide. Now, when you have a religion that's saying you can't explore the nature around you, then that's when you get to a problem. And that's when you can maybe say, well, you can start to question it.
I see. I mean, I do agree that both of them doesn't necessarily have to collide because we do have examples of people who were very scientific and still believe in a God. I mean, we also have the opposite.
That's true.
Yes. But I do like your approach. It's kind of like both assess different aspects of reality. So that means that reality has a multiple layers on them. So like reality, you can define reality just in specific ways, and it has like different like like an onion and like the whole like a Shrek movie. Like you have to like be on peeling it to kind of like see and different tools. So then we can have like the whole tool assessment. Like, okay, depending on what type of reality you're looking to discover, you have different tools available for you to actually look into it. Like maybe, for example, if you're trying to look at the bones, you have like the X-rays. Like you will understand what's happening with the bone, but not with the muscle and things like that. So you're gonna have to use different tools to understand different areas of the same part of the body. I'm just making
So,
an analogy here,
so
but
like,
I'm assuming. Mhm.
I'm gonna interrupt Manzi. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Manzi. I'm sorry. But since the next topic is what perception of reality through science, is that what it was? So
I believe so.
So if that since that's the case, I'm gonna lead into it by saying this. I'm gonna say, um, and this is my own opinion. I think religion is only real because people believe in it. With that being the case, what the reality or true essence of reality is, that we have. I don't really know if we know that. I don't know how that can even be explained. I don't know. Like, is morality real? If it's only us that are believing in it, is it real? I don't know. I don't know what to tell
Yeah,
you. Is it just a human
but
are human constructs
but
real?
I believe that it's the reason why religion exists. Because if we start considering that aspect of reality, like most people will be so overwhelmed by like
Ferdinando, you're
the
freezing. So.
uncertainty, senses that is most adjustable in for you to be able to like analyze it without affecting you too negatively. But I see that Nancy isn't to speak, so
Yeah, I mean, you would never know this
it's
was the
so
first day of
sad.
I mean, the conversation's really, really epic. I've been enjoying listening to y'all go back and forth. Um, I'll chime in a little bit, kind of tying it back into morality, I suppose. The thing about many religions, is that they don't necessarily just give you an account of what is, which is to say, what is real, essentially. They tell you what is real in terms of value. They say the world itself has a certain kind of value. Certain actions are more valuable than others. Certain intentions are more valuable than others. This kind of thing. So, I mean, this is why I think morality and religion are sort of part and parcel with one another. You cannot really separate the two, because any theological theory of reality includes a theological theory on what is and is not considered valuable. And again, if you want to look at something like Christianity, the value has everything to do with our notion of what God is, for those who are of that religion, regardless of the denomination. Oh, hey, what's up, Robbie?
You just barely noticed.
So disrespectful. So
She
disrespectful.
wasn't in my picture. She only popped up when Daryl
She
left.
has been here for like 40 minutes.
Don't give me off track. I'm losing my train of thought. But I will say this, that it's something to consider. I mean, when you look at reality through the lens of religion, it's telling you what to value, and it's doing so in a way that is, rationally going to appeal to you, to your rational nature, as opposed to, say, something like science, which you could argue science will show us what is real, and according to its understanding of things, but it doesn't necessarily have as much to say about value. Perhaps we can get into that next week. But religion, the very metaphysics of it is inherently tied into the ethics.
I have to disagree with you on that, because I think science does show us value. In fact, it shows us tangible value. Like, let's say science says you drink more water, you're going to feel better. You drink more water, you're feeling better. That's pretty tangible. It's pretty valuable.
I mean, look, we can say,
but science also once said that
you
mercury could cure many diseases, and look at where that got us.
Wait, but relax, because look, think about the fact that we have airplanes, that we have phones, that we're talking over. That's all because of the fruit of science, nothing else. That's not value. That's not value.
Technology came from an attempt to understand the world in a religious context. This is where science came from. But the thing is this, your example about the water, science can show us, quantitatively speaking, that if you drink a certain amount of water, you will feel a certain way because the water will impact your body, all the chemical reactions, what have you. But who's to say we should value, this might seem a little silly, but who's to say we should value feeling good? I mean, there are plenty of times where feeling good is the result of things that maybe aren't necessarily valuable. So again, it can kind of show us the results and help sort of, again, quantify it with data and evidence, empirical evidence, but it doesn't necessarily perhaps tell us why we should care. It's assuming that you want to feel better. It's assuming that you value a certain way of living. Those are big assumptions, even if they seem rather obvious.
That's true. I mean, I think everybody here to some extent will value life. If not, the question, if that's not, then why are you living? I think that's kind of the question of what that is. But I mean,
what kind of life should we lead? That's where religion comes into play. It'll say, hey, be Christ-like, for example. God is love. The reason why we accept that is because, on one hand, it appeals to our intellect, and the other hand, it appeals to our heart in terms of its humility. Because, I mean, I think that's a big appeal to some of these major religions, is that they say, we can't know, but we can know enough to the point where it makes rational sense to have faith in it. And therefore, it makes rational sense to live according to that sort of whatever moral code the religion happens to uphold.
Okay, I think someone was next. I think it was you.
I was, and I'm good. I'm glad that the topic stayed within science and religion, because as of right now, we can only assume, and this is science, all right? Don't confuse this with religion. This is science. We do not know how fast the light travels. we can make an assumption that it travels what, some 300,000 kilometers a second, if someone can check that. It's actually 299,000, but 300,000 just rounded up. So that being said, how much faith can we put in science itself when we do not even know how to calculate the speed of light? And if that's the case, then science says that a person is alive if they have a certain things, but it cannot prove a soul, even though a corpse has the same organs. They might be functionable, but they're not functioning. Why? Because it's missing a soul. A soul is the person that makes a person alive. And that is what comes in from religion. So you cannot always take one thing over the other. For example, you cannot only take religion and say, okay, I'm going to cling to this and live my life this way. You could, but then you would be neglecting the virtues of science, like advanced modern medicine, the treatments, the cures, the mathematics, and all that comes along with it. But on the other hand, if you just stick to science, you lose your touch with that sense of morality, and that is proven time and again through certain experiments on animals, on human babies. I think it was one of the last discussions that we had where we talked about an experiment about a mother's love and how it was conducted on baby chimpanzees and how none of them got past the age of 1 year. So if you stick to either one of them too close, you lose sight and you lose the value of the other. So it only goes to show that science and religion can only have a perfect harmony in the mix. Like it can prove, science can prove life, and we have plants for that, but plants are stationary. They don't necessarily move as much as humans or animals. But then these two things have souls, the human and the animal, the beast. Again, restricting the vision further, the beast does not have what we call morality. The human does. Hence, by natural deduction, morality is a human construct. Because if, for example, a lion is hungry, it doesn't care if its prey is a baby, a newborn, an adult, a sick animal, or whatever. It's hungry and it's gonna hunt and eat it. But we, on the other hand, we look at a baby kitten and we go, "Oh."
Uh, you should. Can I say something to that? I'm gonna say two things. I want to address two things you said. So first, I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna say science in the absence of religion, morality is still gonna exist, inevitably. I'm gonna say that, and I'm gonna say with the strict following of religion, science will not always exist in terms of like exploring science and like achieving in a pursuit of it. I think that's the case because with science, yes, it's a idea that you're gonna what the scientific method. I'm exploring things. I'm understanding reality in a different perspective, but morality is something I think is innate to humans. I think it's something that as long as we're coexisting with each other, we're gonna have to adopt some form of morality, whether it's utilitarian, whether it's abiding by science, like, oh, I'm going to treat you this way because you're a specific scientist that needs to work on this because I need you there. That's morality, regardless of what you believe. So I think in terms of morality, it will always exist, even regardless of in the absence of religion. And also, what you said second, I think, oh yeah, you're saying no, wait a second. You also said this. You said the lions. You said the lions. Something about the lions is gonna always eat the prey. But okay, well then, what if a human who hasn't been fed anything, who is just hungry, is locked in with another human? What happens to that morality after who knows how many days?
That is my point, my friend. That morality is a human construct. It does not exist by nature. It does not
But
happen.
that's not necessarily
That's
true
actually the
though, because
opposite of
there are
what I'm
some
saying.
See,
instances. There are some
because
instances
when
where
it comes to
animals
morality, and
show
that's
also
some my
morality.
favorite book to quote is The Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, and Professor Manzi knows where I'm going with this. In the book, they're making babies like a Ford power plant. They're pushing out babies like cars. And where's the morality in that? When this moral person does come into the picture, they accuse him and they beat him down to something that the society does not understand. Hence, morality is only what we perceive it to be. For it, if it did exist in nature, the the entire ecosystem would be so much different.
I think it does exist in nature.
And I'm phrasing. I believe it exists in nature. It's just that they act upon it in a way that is different.
There you go.
Because even I have seen that sometimes, like even between like animals, like I have seen several instances, not just one. Like for example, a cheetah killed like the chimpanzee's mother, and then the cheetah took care of the baby. Like in several, like that's just one example, and it is true. And like listen, like I do believe exists in nature. It's just that we as a human species have had the capacity to label it, define it, and it's easier for us to see how it works since we understand each other, but we don't completely understand how they use morality in their case. But I see John is wanting to speak, so go ahead, John.
So Orlando, to your point, if we were locked in a room and only taught to eat certain things, but then a Uruguayan soccer team crashes into the side of the Andes, they'd never been taught to eat humans. They've been taught to survive. So if they've never been taught to eat humans, but they realize that that's their only source of nutrition to survive, doesn't that defeat kind of the point you were making there? Because they were thriving out of necessity. And if we're sitting in a room, we're not thriving out of necessity. We're being thrived because we're being taught you only eat this. There is very direct indication or very direct instruction on what you do and don't do, even though they may not say, oh, by the way, you don't eat each other, you eat this.
So yeah, I'm kind of confused as to how it's opposite of my point, because what I'm saying is it's not like morality will change depending on circumstance. The morality could be, oh, I'm not going to eat a human as long as I have food. But if I don't have food and I'm locked in this bus and I have no choice, and it's like this instinctual thing, the morality essentially changes.
So I was splitting hairs then, because when you say I'm only going to eat food, my brain says, yeah, but a human's food.
Well, there you go. I mean, what I mean by food is something like that's not human.
It doesn't require a morality shift to eat food. It just requires a morality shift to define what food is.
I guess you could say that.
I like where you're going with this, Professor, and I was going to expand on it that if that's the case, that our morality, does it only end at eating humans? What about meat? Where does our morality go? Only because it tastes good? Does that not does that not conflict with your point that you're making? One, I'm sorry.
He's a professor of life. Don't worry.
I'm confused as to what what are we talking? Because you're saying
morality. We're talking about morality and it not existing in nature. And I'll take the example that you put out about being locked in a room, right? See, our instincts, they come from nature. Us breathing, our heart running, trying to survive, staying warm when it's cold, staying cold when it's hot, those things, those are our instincts and they come from nature. Our morality does not come from nature, because if you're locked in a room with one person that you know you're stronger than that person and you can possibly kill and eat them, you're going to do that just to survive, but you're not going to stop breathing. You're not even going to think about stopping breathing, because morality goes down the drain at that point, because it's not your instinct. Your instinct is to survive and to get out of there. It's not about caring, oh, that person might have a family. Sure, in the beginning, you might have these thoughts. In the end, you might have these thoughts. But during the act of killing and consuming that person, your morality goes out the window. It is non-existent at that point.
Well, couldn't you say that my survival against all others is your morality? at that point?
This
How
is
are you
turning
more
quite
than?
dark.
That's your, because we're not talking about, I'm talking about circumstantial
Bible, the
morality, that
Quran,
it's
they
will
teach.
shift essentially at
Judaism, religions
the
don't
Okay,
say
but
at
that
the aim of
God
guys,
should
survival.
kill.
guys, I have a question. Like, yes, I don't get me wrong. I love this type of conversations, but I also want to be mindful of the others. Like, I would like to have a feeling of how does this relate to religion, since it's the topic
Oh,
that
this
we're discussing. Like,
me,
we
man.
can
That ended
certainly
11
tackle
minutes
this
ago.
back later. Like, for sure, we can do that. But like, does it, like where we're talking right now, does it combine to religion? Because I mean, like we already are over the hour meeting, so I would like to like start like kind of like having a conclusion, so that we can like send them home like with something to think about it for next week.
Oh, I thought it was over already.
Okay. So well, I do
Yeah, well,
agree. Okay, so go ahead, Nancy. It's fine.
oh, no, go for it. I was gonna kind of piggyback on what you're just saying, but yeah, just for everybody who's here, again, do we want to say something about the fall officers, or you want to wait till next week? The fall
Yes,
officer.
sure. I mean, we have a couple of people here, so let's go with that. Like, yes, our philosopher, our philosophers. We are deciding that we would like to help students during their academic endeavors. So, if you're a philosophy student and you need some help with some understanding different topics, we're going to be having philosopher hours. So you can talk with us as students, so we can help you go through the material for your classes and maybe understand some here and there type of information that maybe is a little bit harder for professors to really have like a one-on-one conversation. The way we're looking into this is that right after the philosophy meetings, we can continue the conversation, or we are also exploring and just having sometimes like a booking system where you kind of like, hey, listen, I may not can like right after the meeting, but I have a time like in Wednesday something. So one of the officers can kind of like, okay, yes, I can help you in that around that time, and then we can like start conversations on whatever is it that you're wondering takes you. So that's one of the projects we're working on. And we also have other things. We're also gonna try to like have some highlights for students that are engaging, so we can kind of like quote them and have them some more of a presence in social media. And I think somebody was trying to say something. I think it was maybe Lucia.
The website.
Oh yes. Do we have the link? We can share the link, but we are also gonna have all this information available. And I'm working right now having all the recorded posts available, so you can watch them and have some credit hours, some credit points extra for your classes. But we're gonna be using our website also, so be on the lookout. You may be there with a couple of pictures, who knows? But yeah, that's a project that we're also gonna be working. So yeah, good stuff.
Yes.
And it, Mhm.
Yeah, if you go to the files in our teams and you click on the 21 schedule for the topics, at the bottom you'll see all of our social media handles. So again, we're on. You have the link to the website. You have a link to the YouTube page, which has like all the semesters that we've done this, and then of course our Instagram, our Facebook, our Twitter, all that good stuff. So you can always have that reference point in Teams if you're looking for how to get us elsewhere.
okay,
Thanks, Josh.
is John saying that is the link is broken? We can fix that. We can glue it. It's okay. All right. So well, with that being said, again, I'm always so happy to have you here. And it's a spring. It's time for flourishing. So let's see how we flourish from this semester. If you have any like additional thought, feel free to engage with us. We're always willing to like be philosophizing on these topics.
Yeah,
This
well,
by no means me. I don't know if yeah, you can just like, hey, like I was really curious into this thing. Can you kind of like expand more on these ideas? And we can certainly do that. We love philosophy, so we're gonna do that for you. So yeah. With that being said, this has been the first time, like the first meeting of the semester, and we're going into the same theme, but through science. That's our next topic. looking forward to it, and yeah, be ready. Think about it. You see, I'm trying to use your word, man. So think about it. Yeah,
I was gonna say.
or not, or not, or don't
Yikes.
think about it and just like swing by and try to see if you nail it or not. All
Use
right. Okay, so I'm gonna then stop the recording. Ooh. Okay, yeah.
All right.
Does it work? They work. Yes. No.